Hey guys, so today we have Arakara, City of Echoes 16 as a Shadow Pan Brewmaster Monk in Season 3. This is the route. I'll be explaining some of the first half of it because I feel like that's the important one, right? That's really where you hit or miss your count. And these are the talents again. Shadow Pan talents, I don't change them at all. So they're the same as every other video. And my gear for this run was the same, so nothing really changes here. So onto the first pull, which is probably one of the harder ones to do, right? It's because these little crawlers and the flyers, they tend to jump on your party members, right? So just make sure that you get some initial aggro. Nobody has to dismount, right? Everybody just has to keep going to the first mini boss. There, I'm just trying to tag all of these little mobs. As you can see, they already have aggro. They probably started DPSing, right? So once I have them all grouped up, I make sure to exploding keg, and then I taunt any mobs that are kind of loose. I should have Blackhawk statued into AoE taunt. That would have really set it for me. My first kick is always on the attendant. It really shouldn't. It should be on the mini boss so you can interrupt the fear because that's normally what's going to wipe the group, right? Um, if you have a fear, everybody's just going to pretty much die, right? It's 6 seconds. So there, I interrupted that one, or somebody interrupted. But you just have to be mindful of the fear here. It can definitely wipe the group in this pool more than anything else. There, I'm pinging the DK to kind of grip this guy in. He gripped it in a little bit late, but still, it's okay. We have the damage to kind of dispatch this. As you can see, our comp is a little bit interesting. So Frost DK, Fury Warrior, and the Windwalker Monk. So we're all melee, no range. But yeah, we take care of the first mini boss and on to the next one. So we've pretty much cleared up a lot of those crawlers, and now we're dragging all of this into the mini boss again. Now, the problem here is when he does his Call of the Brood, all of these little ads spawn and they'll latch on to whoever's close, right? So here I accidentally roll away and our warrior gets one shot by all of these. I was trying to look for my AoE taunt macro. I missed it completely and the warrior died, right? He pretty much would have survived, I think, if I would have just keg smashed one time. But again, that's like the difficult part of this mini boss. So what you want to do is everybody just needs to stack on top of you, right? If they stack on top of you, behind the mini boss, nobody's gonna get hit by any frontals. There, I ring a piece just to make sure that nobody got automatically hit by any of these crawlers. Again, trying to avoid any one shots, which are sadly like the more difficult part of this one, just because of the way WoW is developed. I guess they spawn from under you, so because they spawn from under you, whoever's closest to them will get hit. If somebody happens to be in a bad position, they'll just take a huge hit. But that's the next mini boss. And now for this pool, you want to not keg smash this. You want to make sure you just tag it, and then you can grab all of these, right? Now, the reason you don't want to keg smash it is because you'll slow it, right? And you want it to move into you. So normally what you would do is spinning crane kick into a taunt so that you can speed it up, and then somebody else will interrupt it into this mini boss. So we killed that. The Mistweaver, Windwalker died. I rezzed them while our healer drank. And I'm gonna pull some of these flyers into the boss, just because we need them for count and also for padding for cleave. I don't know if anybody in our and our group will benefit from that. But I do this every time, and it's generally always a good idea. Now, the strat for this boss is simple. The boss will only eat the ads if they run into his huge circle, right? Now, how do you avoid that? By standing behind the tank. Everybody has to just stand behind the tank, and he'll never get to eat them, but all of your abilities will still be able to cleave them down, and you'll be able to maintain really good uptime. So we have to do this on this entire fight just because all of our DPS is melee, right? And as you saw, we all stacked on top of me, and we picked the general direction to rotate it, right? Okay, now on to the second half. So all of this is pretty much already like set in stone as to what you're gonna pull. There's very little that you can skip here. If anything, just the blood guard that's before the next boss. I know some people like to skip it, but we're not gonna skip it. It's a 16. We have the damage for it, and it's decent count, right? We just have to make sure that during these pulls here, we interrupt the casters because the casters are the more dangerous ones, right? If the Blinker does his AoE and the cast goes off, it's pretty much the DPS is dead. Dare use Clash to drag in that stack shell. I didn't have enough threat on all of these just because he kind of just gripped it out of nowhere, right? Like I wasn't aware, and our healer died, right? So again, these little blood workers will jump randomly onto different party members, so you got to make sure that everybody's relatively topped off and that the healer's prepared for them, right? The healer really wasn't. The guy just gripped it in. Also, we have to make sure that we don't let the stack shell's cast go off because it'll pretty much wipe us, right? So there it went off because I was too busy trying to top off my team with my instant vivify. But again, it's not the end of the world just because we have the damage for it and we didn't take too long on the first boss, right? So we just proceed to DPS all of this stuff. Now this segment is where you do the skip if you don't want to do the next blood guard. So this area where the marker is at is where you would position yourself, and then you would use an ability to jump over the fence that's right next to it. Something like Heroic Leap on warriors, and if you have an evoker on your team, Rescue can also be used to kind of get over. So those are two things you can use for the skip. Bloodguard is dead. I pull all of this into the boss. Again, it's more funnel for whoever needs it. I don't know if the DK or the Windwalker need it, but yeah. So what's important here is where you're placing your infestation and also making sure to kill these wet mages as soon as they spawn, right? If they start to cast that on anyone while he does his AoE, it'll pretty much kill everyone, right? So this Eye of the Swarm thing is just like gonna destroy anyone who's rooted outside of it. So you just have to be careful with it. That's it. And then this, always make sure that you're tanking it to the right side of the circle. You can get hit by those. It's fine. You have defenses for it. There I had to use diffuse magic to kind of help. So don't be afraid of taking one tick of it. It's fine. You can survive the 3 seconds of it. And then everything else is just rinse and repeat. So just like the first pool in the beginning of the dungeon, this one is also important because you want to make sure that you pull enough of this stuff, right? So here I'm trying to get all of these carriers with this overseer and all of these little drones, right? So I ring a piece there because as you can see, carriers like to dive in on the DPS and the healer. So the ring a piece helps keep them off while I manage to hold on to threat from everyone. We have Lex Sweep, we have Shockwave, so we have some AoE CC if we need it.
Watch your step.
You just have to always just constantly pay attention to where you're positioning. The other thing is, you get a stacking magical debuff, right? If you diffuse magic, it will reflect it back onto the drones. Kind of neat that we have an ability like that. So just be mindful of your debuffs. If your healer can't dispel it, you can always diffuse magic it for a little bit extra damage on the ads. And having the extra magic defensive really helps too. Here I get a little bit low, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm using my defensives. There I had to stun everyone, fortifying brew because I honestly didn't wanna risk it, right? So just pulling all of this into the next pack, which is gonna be these 2 drones here. Once this overseer dies, we're gonna go into the next big pull there. So you can see it's the 2 overseers and then all 5 of those drones, just so that we can clear them out. It'll give us the 100% count, and we also have about 7 minutes for this. We want to make sure that we have roughly about 4.5 for the final boss. There I stood in that, so I had to ring a piece to make sure that I break out of it. So this is another thing. Just stick to one marker if there's markers, and then just constantly interrupt it, and everyone else should interrupt the other one. So hopefully there's enough interrupts for that. And save your Tiger's Lust for whenever you get too many stacking debuffs, then you can't move out of those swirls, right? So that's always what's important.
Watch your step.
So the Overseers are dead, then we got a couple of ads. So just pull them into the boss, just because we're at 4:30. 4 minutes and 30 seconds to do this, so we have to make sure that we get as much time on him. Those ads died along the way too, so it's fine. Here, Cultivate Poison. You can dispel if you talent into it, which I recommend for this dungeon. So I'll just pick whichever DPS is taking the most damage, right? Which happened to be the Death Knight. But then again, he gets hit by the other poison and he takes more damage. Now, here's a little trick here for this casting the Singularity, right? So I rolled away as far as I can and then as soon as he pulls you in, you cast Transcendence, and you'll be out of range from it. So this helps a lot, especially in these melee comps, just
Watch your
because
step.
um we probably won't have a lot of circles to stand in, right? It's either going to be somebody hitting them from far, or the healer occasionally just tossing something on these blood workers to drop the puddles. But at least this way you don't have to worry about it, right?
Watch
So
your
all you have
step.
to worry about is standing out of these, dispelling the poison, and making sure that you tank it out of these puddles, right? I did that wrong and somebody got caught. So the reason you want to tank it away from these is so that nobody gets hit by that.
Read good. Watch your step. 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 Read good. Watch your step.
And that's the whole fight. There I'm spamming Touch of Death just to get it out. And that's 16 Arakara. I'm sorry for the quest objectives on the timer on the right. But we had 29 seconds left, 5 deaths. Not bad. This got me over 3200 rating. So it was a pretty interesting dungeon. My damage is 4.8 million overall. Probably low. I've seen others get like 5.5 million overall. But it's decent enough to time it, and I did a good job surviving. So that's what matters. And my damage breakdown, again, Flurry Strikes is always going to be number one. Stomp and Brand doing a pretty decent amount here. And my self healing, Celestial Fortune, of course, because of my 52% crit whenever I would trigger my trinkets. So for the next video, I'll upload one of the newer dungeons from season 3, quote unquote newer. So stay tuned for that. See you.